Trying to just read my notes. Please bear with me. Okay, this is the point. So I'll never forget my dad. But when he passed, I really yearned for him. And there was a time when I had a dream about him. And I was so excited that I had this dream about him. And in later dreams, I had a dream about him. And only because of the relationship I have with God now, only because of me setting myself aside and the consecration he allowed me to go through, I ran into Prophetess Tiffany Montgomery on YouTube and Pastor Kevin L.A. Ewing. You know, these people who were talking about the demonic realm. Pastor Stephen Darby, who has since passed on, or he passed on actually before. He had passed on before I found him on YouTube, but his videos remain. And there's a wealth of knowledge and information in these three talking about how the enemy tries to make us go into covenant through our dreams. When I was dreaming about my dad, it's only through this experience that I realized that that was not my dad, that that was a familiar spirit that was attached to my family that was trying to get me to go back into covenant with the enemy. Because I began to break a lot of covenants. I was repenting and renouncing and denouncing and asking the Lord to forgive me. And even before I knew the actual word was renounce and denounce, I was binding Satan and I was asking the Lord to forgive me. And I was coming out of agreement and I was rebuking myself, repenting for my own sin and the things that I had done. And I got to this part about familiar spirits and I learned that that spirit that kept presenting itself as my father was not my father. That spirit that kept visiting, that was making me feel comfortable that at least in my sleep I can see my dad, was not my father. And because of my relationship with God, I was able to say, I renounce and denounce any covenant that I went into with that familiar spirit, and I bind that familiar spirit, and you are no longer welcome here. And anytime I have a dream where I dream about anybody that is deceased in my family, I come out of agreement with that. I bind that familiar spirit. There's a book called Generational Prayers from Oslin's Place. It's the 2022 version. I have been praying those prayers. I go through those prayers. I pray through the whole book and I need to go back through it. And I prayed the prayers and I've broken those covenants. I don't want any familiar spirits coming into my life. I bind and I break all agreement with any familiar spirit, any demonic covenant, any demonic curses, any spirit spouses, all of that stuff. But it's only because of my understanding now that that's not my dad. And the enemy was using my love for my dad and my longing for my dad and the fact that I had made my dad a god to then make me want to go back into covenant with him, not even knowing that that's what I was doing. So that is something else that came from that experience. And I just want to leave that with saying, for those of you who are seeing familiar spirits, for those of you who are seeing dead relatives, please understand, I'm not trying to be insensitive, but what you need to understand is the enemy will use our pain in those places where we are vulnerable to try to come in and make us go into agreement with him so that we go away from the safety of God. So now in my dreams, I don't see my dad anymore. I don't see dead relatives anymore. But my relationship with God is stronger than it's ever been, because in me letting go of something that the enemy was trying to give me, I'm receiving the more of God. So you also be encouraged to knowing that when you say no to the devil, you're saying yes to God. And every time you say yes, you're drawing closer and closer to God. And you're getting more and more in his presence. And you're getting into his safety. You're under the shadow of the wings of the Almighty God. You're in the secret place with him. Every time you say yes to him, you're honoring him. And although the enemy will attack you, will try to attack you, when you're in right covenant with God, when you're in covenant and right relationship with God, remember there's no weapon that is formed against you that shall prosper. It shall not succeed. And I've even gotten to the point where I've prayed, Lord, don't even let the weapon be formed. When the enemy is trying to form the weapon, let them parts fall to the ground. Don't even let it work. Let it explode. Whatever it is that he's trying to do, I pray against the evil plan of the enemy, that not even that weapon that is formed shall be able to prosper.